Got home late, certain my husband had no clue about my affair, but the house was empty, spotless, and dead silent. My breath hitched when I spotted a Polaroid of my lover taped to the fridge, with a message that read, "Guess he's all you've got now." My hands trembled as I walked to the bathroom, and what my husband had left floating in the tub made me collapse in shock. I never thought I'd be sharing this, but here I am, hoping that by putting it out there, I might find some semblance of peace, or at least warn others. I'm a 38-year-old woman, and until recently, I believed I had a solid marriage with my husband, Mark, who's 42. We've been together for 15 years, married for 12, and live in a cozy home in the suburbs of Chicago. For the past year, I've been involved in an affair with a man named Daniel. We met at a local gym, and what started as innocent conversations about workouts gradually evolved into something much more. Daniel is charismatic, attentive, and made me feel alive in ways I hadn't felt in years. I knew it was wrong, but I convinced myself that Mark would never find out. Last Friday was like any other. I told Mark I'd be working late, a common excuse I'd used during my rendezvous with Daniel. After spending the evening with Daniel at his apartment downtown, I returned home around midnight. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed something was off. The house was dark and Mark's car was missing. I stepped inside to find the place eerily silent and impeccably clean, almost too clean. My heart raced as I walked into the kitchen. There, taped to the fridge, was a Polaroid picture of Daniel and me, taken just a week prior at a cafe where we thought no one would recognize us. Beneath it, a note in Mark's handwriting read, "Guess he's all you've got now." My hands trembled and my knees buckled. How did he find out? Who took this photo? Desperate for answers, I stumbled toward the bathroom, a place where I often sought solace. Pushing open the door, I was met with a sight that made my stomach churn. Floating in the bathtub was my wedding dress, the one I'd worn on our special day, now soaked and ruined. Beside it, our wedding album, pages warped and images blurred from the water. It was as if Mark wanted to wash away every memory of our union. I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. The weight of my actions came crashing down on me. I had betrayed the man who had stood by me through thick and thin, and now, it seemed, he was gone. I tried calling his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I reached out to his friends and family, but no one knew where he was. Days have passed, and there's still no sign of Mark. I've been staying at a friend's place, too ashamed to return to what was once our home. I've had time to reflect on my actions and the pain I've caused. I don't know if Mark will ever forgive me or if I'll ever forgive myself. All I know is that I made a series of choices that led to this devastating outcome, and now I have to live with the consequences. I stayed up the entire night on the floor of my friend Jess's guest room, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out where it all started going wrong. Every few minutes, I would pick up my phone, hoping for a message, a missed call, something from Mark. But there was nothing. The next morning, I went back to the house. I told Jess I just needed to grab a few things, but honestly, I needed to see if this was all real. Maybe it had just been a nightmare. When I walked in, the house still smelled faintly like bleach. Every surface was spotless. The couch cushions were fluffed, the kitchen counter was bare. No dishes. No clutter. Not even the usual pile of unopened mail by the door. It didn't feel like home anymore. I walked into the bathroom again, half hoping the dress and album were gone. But no, they were still there. The water was murky now. Cold. The sight of the fabric floating in the tub made my stomach twist. I didn't have it in me to touch it. I found a manila envelope on the hallway table. It had my name in big, neat letters. Inside was a flash drive and a sticky note that said, "You should see who Daniel really is." That was it. No other message. I rushed back to Jess's place and plugged the flash drive into her laptop. The folder on it was titled Truth. My heart was pounding as I opened it. There were screenshots, tons of them. Messages between Daniel and other women. Dates. Hotel receipts. Photos. A few of the women looked like me. A few didn't. There were at least 5 different names mentioned. One photo showed Daniel in a different apartment, one I'd never seen before, kissing someone else on the same couch where we used to sit. My mouth went dry. The worst part? Some of the photos were taken on nights he told me he loved me. I sat there frozen. I didn't know who to be angry with first, myself for falling into this mess, Daniel for being a liar, or Mark for somehow knowing before I did. A few hours later, Jess came home with groceries. She found me still sitting at the table. I showed her the flash drive. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Do you think Mark hired someone to follow you?" I hadn't even thought of that. It made sense, though. That photo on the fridge, someone had to take it. And if Mark had someone following me, maybe he had someone following Daniel, too. I remembered how careful Daniel and I had been. Or at least I thought we were. No PDA in public, no selfies together, no posting anything online. But that photo on the fridge wasn't taken from inside the cafe. It was from across the street, through the window. Someone had been watching. Later that night, I got a blocked number call. I hesitated, then answered. There was silence for a moment. Then a man's voice. Deep. Calm. "Do you know who you've been sleeping with?" "Who is this?" "You don't know Daniel. You never did." The line went dead. I tried calling back, but of course, it didn't go through. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat in Jess's living room, going through every message I ever got from Daniel, every memory. I started to see things I'd ignored before. He never let me come over without texting first. His apartment always looked too clean, like it was barely lived in. There were never any signs of another life, but now I wasn't sure. I went to Daniel's apartment the next day. I didn't call or text. I just showed up. When I knocked, a woman answered. She looked maybe 30. Blonde. Tired eyes. "Can I help you?" I asked if Daniel was there. She just stared at me, then stepped aside. "You mean my husband?" I felt like the ground fell out from under me. I left without saying another word. I drove for over an hour before pulling over to cry. I'd been cheated on by the man I was cheating with. The irony was disgusting. And then I thought about Mark. He'd known. He must have known this whole time. And instead of screaming or fighting or confronting me, he just vanished. Left a message. A photo. A ruined wedding dress. And a warning. There was one more folder on the flash drive I hadn't opened yet. It was password protected. The note didn't give a password and I didn't want to guess. But I had a gut feeling it wasn't meant for me. It was Mark's final message, maybe. Or maybe it was meant to stay hidden. But I needed to know. I haven't opened it yet. I don't know what I'll find in there. I stared at that locked folder on the flash drive for hours. I tried all the obvious passwords, our wedding date, my name, his name, Daniel's name. Nothing worked. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room. That night, I was back at Jess's. She was out with friends, and I was alone. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat with the laptop open, still staring at that folder labeled, "Do not open unless you're ready." I typed in one more guess. It was dumb, but I tried the name of the cafe where the photo was taken, Birchleaf. It opened. The folder had one video file. Just one. I clicked it. The screen went black for a few seconds, then I saw Mark. He was sitting at his desk in our home office. The camera was a little off-center, like he had set it up in a hurry. He looked tired, pale, like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes weren't angry. They looked defeated. He started speaking, slow and clear. "If you're watching this, I guess you figured out Daniel's not who you thought he was. I'm sorry it had to come to this. I tried. I really tried to save what we had. But I realized you weren't just having an affair. You were falling for someone who doesn't even exist." He leaned forward. "I hired a PI 6 months ago. At first, I thought maybe I was just paranoid. You coming home late. The way you'd flinch when I walked into the room. The sudden gym interest. I felt sick. But the more they found, the worse it got. Daniel, his real name isn't Daniel. It's Scott McKinney. He's been arrested 3 times for fraud. He changes cities every few years. New job, new name, new women. Always women in long-term relationships. He gets in deep, pulls them away from their lives. Then disappears. I froze. He's done this before. The private investigator tracked down 2 of his exes. One woman in Denver lost her home. Another in Boston tried to take her own life. You are next. Mark's voice cracked. I thought about confronting you. I wanted to scream, to ask why. But then I realized, maybe it wasn't just you that needed saving. Maybe you needed to see who this man really is. The video ended. I sat there shaking. I didn't know what to think. My stomach was churning. Mark had been watching all this unfold he'd known for months. And instead of blowing up, he'd set it all in motion. The photo, the flash drive, the cold house, the silence. He didn't just leave me. He dismantled everything. Quietly, methodically. That night, I didn't sleep again. The next day, I went to the police station with the flash drive. I wasn't sure what else to do. I gave them Daniel Scott's photo, the video, everything. I didn't know if it would lead to anything, but it felt like the only responsible thing left to do. Then, things got even weirder. The next morning, I found an envelope on Jess's porch. No stamp, no name. Just my name written in blue pen. Inside was a photo of me sleeping, taken from outside the window. The same night I watched Mark's video. There was a note. You should have kept your mouth shut. Jess called the cops right away. They took the envelope, the note, and started checking her security cameras. Nothing. Whoever left it knew how to avoid being seen. That's when I realized something terrifying. If Mark knew who Daniel really was, if he knew everything about his past, then where was he now? Why hadn't he gone to the police himself? Why did he just disappear? I went back to our house. I needed answers. But when I walked inside, I noticed something was off. The air felt different. I walked upstairs and saw it, our closet. Mark's side was full again. His shoes. His jackets. His laptop on the dresser. I opened the laptop. Password was the same as always. There were emails open, drafts. To me. I'm sorry I left like that. I couldn't stand to see you lie to my face. I've been watching him too. That last one made my skin crawl. Mark never left. He had been watching me. Watching him. Watching everything. He was still here. Somewhere. I sat in our old bedroom, staring at Mark's laptop, heart pounding. The emails in the drafts folder weren't just thoughts. They were messages meant for me, but never sent. Pages and pages of his pain. Descriptions of the nights he watched me lie. The morning after I came back with Daniel's cologne still on my clothes. He noticed everything. Every detail I thought I'd hidden. And then I saw the final draft. One line. I want to look you in the eye when I show you who he really is. A floorboard creaked downstairs. My throat tightened. I froze. I wasn't alone in the house. I crept to the hallway and peeked over the banister. Mark stood in the living room. Same black hoodie he always wore when he was stressed. Same shoes. Same stare. He looked up at me slowly, like he knew I was watching. I walked down the stairs. I didn't say a word. Neither did he. The silence between us was thicker than any argument we could have had. Finally, he spoke. Quiet, cold. You didn't open that last draft, did you? I read them all. He nodded. His jaw clenched. I was going to send them. All of them. But every time I read them back, I couldn't. He pulled a folded paper out of his pocket. Handed it to me. It was a printed background check. Daniel's, no, Scott McKinney's real file. Mugshots. Charges. Restraining orders. A restraining order from a woman named Allison McKinney, his ex-wife. Mark stared at me. You were sleeping with a predator. A con man. A sociopath. And I sat back and let it happen. Tears welled up in my eyes. Why didn't you say anything? Why not stop me? His voice cracked. Because you didn't want to be stopped. That hit harder than anything else. He wasn't angry in that moment. He was hollow. Worn down. Like I had drained every ounce of love he had left. I tried to step forward, but he raised his hand. I left because I wanted to burn the whole thing down. But then I realized the worst punishment was letting you see it crumble by itself. That's when Jess showed up. She must have seen my car and come to check on me. When she stepped in and saw us standing there, tears streaming down my face, Mark silent as stone. She froze. Jesus. What is going on? Mark turned to her. You should take her back to your place. Mark, wait, I said, my voice breaking. He didn't. He walked right past us, out the door, down the porch steps, and drove away. Again. I collapsed on the couch and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. The next few days were chaos. The police opened a full investigation on Scott. The note on Jess's porch was considered a threat. I gave them everything, texts, photos, the flash drive. They said he was already on their radar for fraud in multiple states. One officer told me I might have saved someone else by coming forward. But I didn't feel heroic. I felt filthy. Jess didn't hold back. You could have told me. You were risking your entire life for a guy you barely knew. You had a good man. I know. You don't, actually. Or you wouldn't have done it. Her words cut deep. But she was right. A week later, Mark emailed me. Just one sentence. I'm filing for divorce. I hope you find whatever it was you were looking for. I didn't respond. What could I say? I watched the man I once loved turn into someone I barely recognized, all because I destroyed what we had. I broke something that was never going to be whole again. I still live with Jess. Still go to work. Still pass by places where Daniel, Scott, and I laughed like fools. I never saw him again. The police told me he was spotted in Cincinnati under a new name. They're still trying to build a case that sticks. But people like him? They slip through cracks like shadows. Mark's gone. Not just from my life, but from the city. He moved out west, according to a mutual friend. Started over. He never blocked me. Never lashed out. Just left. And now, every night, I sit in silence and wonder how I let it get this far. Not just the affair, but the loneliness. The emptiness I tried to fill with someone who was never real. I wish I could say I've healed. That I've learned to forgive myself. But mostly, I've learned how betrayal echoes. How it lives in the quiet moments. How it keeps you awake long after the damage is done. People ask me sometimes, do I regret it? And I say yes. Not just for losing Mark, but for losing me in the process. I used to know who I was. Now, I'm still figuring it out. Alone.